perfect segue into the debt debasement. Folks, we do not have $31 trillion of fair market value debt as a federal government. That number is under 25 trillion now. Why? Because you would never pay 31 trillion for that debt now that rates have gone up. And nobody talks about that. So let me break it down real simple for you. I want you to imagine that you're a household and you make 100 grand. You and your wife, you and your husband, whatever. Boom, you're living together. You're making $100,000 a year in this example. Just the example. And let's assume you were paying $25,000 a year in interest on your mortgage. Okay, 25 grand. Okay, so 25%, you would qualify for a loan. So if rates were 5%, you can have a $500,000 loan, right? In this example, you can make the adjustment down if it's 50,000 and 250. Okay, so now all of a sudden we have inflation. Both you and your spouse go and get a raise, and you get a 10% increase in the cost of living. So now your cash flow goes from 100,000 to 110, but your quality of life did not go up because you're like, Bobby, the price of everything went up 10%. We're making 10% more. Whoopee. Nobody cares, right? This sucks. Okay, but here's where it doesn't suck. Okay, so now your cash into your house goes from 100 to 110,000. If inflation falls next year to 0, do they take the 10,000 away from you? And the answer is no. You get to keep the 10,000, the wage increase from inflation. So now your cash, your 25,000 a year that you were paying in interest, you're still paying 25, but you have 110,000 in cash coming in. So that 10,000 divided by 25 is 40%. So you just got a bump of 10,000 of cash. Inflation goes back to 0 or it goes negative even. Let's say it goes negative a few percent, 1 or 2% a year for 5 years. So now over the next 10 years, you're paying down that 20, you're still paying 25,000 because you were locked into a mortgage. You get to pay it down with that extra cash flow. You debase the debt by at least 22%. So I want you to think about that because this happened across our entire economy by the tune of 20 trillion, 20 trillion. You know what that is, folks? 12 zeros. Okay, think about that. 12 zeros, 20 plus 12 zeros. Okay, there's 6 zeros in a million. Okay, and there's 9 zeros in a billion. There's 12 in a trillion. So there's a million millions in 1 trillion. So we as a nation have had all of our debt system-wide, student loan debt, corporate debt, government debt, mortgage debt, everything. We took a $20 trillion haircut this year. That's how much we're all better off. Now, I want you to think about that. We went down 20 trillion. We're, as a nation, say about 30% of our debt just got debased, right? So what happens? We debase all this debt. So now what's going to happen is I want you to imagine we're partners and one of us is working for the other. So you have a pizza place. I like my pizza place example. So there's Jennifer, I'm going to use you and Steven right now. And then you guys are both trying to hire me. Okay. So you guys both have a pizza place. And Steven, you have a pizza place. Jennifer, you have a pizza place. And one of you has $100,000 of debt right there, on your business. And the other one has no debt. Okay. So now one of you has no debt and the other has debt. When you go to price your pizza, when you're trying to figure out how much should I sell my pizza for, does the person who has debt, do they have to sell their pizza at a higher price than the company that doesn't have debt? Yes or no? Yes, you got it. Good answer. If you have debt, you have to sell for a higher price. So debt is a silent partner, okay? Debt is a silent partner. And so you have this debt that wants a piece of the pie, pardon the pun, but the debt wants a piece of the pie. So it just so happens Steven, he doesn't have any debt. So can he have lower prices than Jennifer or higher prices? Right? He can have he can have the same price, right? He can lower his price if he wants. He can maintain the same price if there's enough demand. But then he'll be able to what? He'll be able to make a higher profit margin. And what's the thing that he can do that is pretty powerful that nobody really talks about? Now, I told you at the beginning of this that both of you need labor. Both of you need to hire somebody. You're kind of short staffed because business is good. So who can afford to pay me more to hire me? The business without debt or the business with debt? Who can afford to pay me more, folks? Gee, that's exactly right. That's what competition does. Steven can afford to pay me more, or he could pay me the same amount, theoretically, and come up with a higher quality pizza. That's what he can do. He has the money to put in better ingredients because he doesn't have a silent partner called debt taking a piece of the action. I'm telling you this because our nation just went through $20 trillion of down throttling of debt in the system. Worldwide, it's estimated that number is up to 100 trillion. Okay, 100 trillion worldwide. The people of the world are better off. Now that all got yanked away from these corrupt criminal families that have been ripping off the planet for probably 500 years plus now. So I'm pointing this out because this is an incredible tailwind for the workers of the world, right? The average American worker is going to be so much better off as a result of the debt coming down. Rates are higher. So now it's harder for us to take on debt and not get into this mess again. You see why the rates going up is a good thing? If you're not only do you debase the debt, you make it harder to get back in the same mess, the same soup that you were in before all this happened. See, their game plan, these globalists were trying to figure out how to bankrupt us so that they can reset the game. They could say, hey, we own everything. We're going to take everything away from you because you can't pay the debt. And you don't make enough money because we had to keep charging you a little more interest. That's what was going on, folks. They took interest rates to zero so they can try to paper out more debt that we're all enslaved by. That's why they took interest rates to zero for 10 years. Not only did it allow their criminal family partners from other nations to buy up our country on the cheap with low-cost money, it allowed them to try to claim a lot of assets, across the economy with this debt. And then that's where the laundering came in, because then they were saying we were buying all this shit that we weren't buying. Okay, let's call it what it is. And they were creating fictitious debt in the government, through the federal ledgers. And that's what they were running this sophisticated scam to cheat us every which way you can think of. And it's finally being unwound by patriots that love this country. Okay, so now I want to go into the last thing. Okay, so that was number 9, folks. Okay, that was number 9.